One of the first games I ever played on the PlayStation 3 was Resistance. I got Resistance, guys, and I believe Killzone 3 around the same time on PlayStation 3 when I first picked up the console. And Resistance, guys, was the first game I got my hands on the PS3. And I absolutely loved this game. I thought this was a great game, and between going back and forth between Resistance: Fall of Man and Killzone 3, man, I had a lot of fun on my hands between those two games, two first-person shooters, and there was a lot of different things that were within the game that made it very unique. It kind of reminded me of Gears of War. It had also the ability to have first-person and as well as third-person within in the series. And so I want to talk about what happened to this franchise and where is Resistance 4, because this is a game that I've been waiting for quite some time after the original core trilogy. So let's talk about it. So guys, as I said, Resistance is a series of first-person shooter and third-person shooter video games, of course developed by Insomniac Games, and then of course was published by Sony Computer Entertainment. So when you look at this, obviously these games came exclusively on PlayStation. And we had started off with Resistance: Fall of Man, which came out in 2006, was a launch title for the system. And obviously it kind of started off the Resistance trilogy. And then you had Resistance 2, which followed in 2008, a couple of years later. And a couple years after that, you had Resistance 3. So you had, the three games came out a couple of years after one another. And then after 2011, it just seemed like everything became very quiet with Resistance after 2011, and the game sold very well. And there was a lot of talks as to, are they going to make another Resistance game after that trilogy that they did? And of course they did other games, right? They did Retribution, which was released on the PlayStation Portable on March 17th, 2009. And then, of course, Resistance: Burning Skies, which came out on PlayStation Vita, which I think didn't really do a lot of justice to the franchise. I don't think that they needed to be on, PlayStation Portable and PlayStation Vita. I would have liked to just see continuations of the franchise in other ways. But, for what it was, at least they kept making stuff, right, at the end of the day. And as far as the future is concerned for this franchise, according to Resistance 3 creative director Marcus Smith, the studio has a number of franchises it wants to pursue, and that Resistance is not one of them. It is possible that the franchise will be handed off to another developer. Insomniac CEO Ted Price stated that Insomniac won't be making any more Resistance games. On March 28, 2014, all online features of the Resistance games have been discontinued. And in August 2018, Insomniac's community director James Stevenson called chances of a Resistance 4 a long shot, revealing that neither the developer nor Sony, who owns the IP, were talking about a sequel. And then as of February 27, 2020, Resistance: Fall of Man and Resistance 2 have not been released on the PlayStation Now. So I really think a lot of disservice is being done to this franchise as a whole. I mean, the fact of the matter is that they didn't even bring the Fall of Man as well as Resistance 2 onto the PlayStation Now. The question is, are they going to be bringing everything to the PS5 when that releases? But it just feels like to me that this is a really solid franchise, right? Sold really well. I personally think that, similar to Killzone, we talked about Killzone the other day, but I really think that these two franchises really deserve to continue. Why are they not continuing? And I think that Insomniac or Sony should definitely be passing the torch onwards to another developer, or Sony should just sell the IP completely and somebody else can pick it up. I mean, why not? I think that there's a really cool concept here, and sure, some of the games weren't as good. I would say the third one was not the best one. I would say that, definitely the first two were the most popular of the games, but all three of them did really well. So it's very strange to me to think that all of a sudden they just decide to drop this franchise and decide not to continue it. But that being said, guys, I think as far as where is a Resistance 4, it's in a limbo state, or it is completely on the back burner for Insomniac as well as Sony, which is a really unfortunate thing. I hope they decide to continue this franchise at some point or another. If you're a big Resistance fan, really what this comes down to, guys, is once again, this is another example of a series that we as a community have to tell the developers that we want another game, or at least want another developer to take the reins and give it a try, because it's better than not having any more content or any more, games in this franchise. I mean, they completely shut down all the online features for these games in 2014, which is a complete disservice. I mean, that's 3 years after Resistance 3 came out. They decide to shut all those things down. It's a really unfortunate thing, guys, and I think it's a real disservice to this franchise because it's, in my opinion, a really solid franchise. So let me know, guys, though, what would you guys want to see out of a Resistance 4? Do you want to see a direct continuation of the franchise? You want it to be like a prequel? Who do you want to take the reins of it? You want Sony to keep the IP, or do you want them to sell it? Let me know what you guys think about all those things in the comment section below. And for more Resistance 4 content and videos, stay here with Zero TV.